Welcome to the interview, US edition.
In sunny Los Angeles, we meet America's top Koreans. James Yu, founder of Koream, a window into Korean life in the US. C.S. Lee's inside scoop on Dexter, revealed for the first time on Arirang.
Here in Washington, D.C.
Then we go to Washington to speak of freedom. A modern hero's take on human rights today. Dana Tysoon Burgess, an Asian American dancer, speaks to the world with his body.
In the city of cities, New York, New York.
Korean food wins over New York's trendiest diners. Be captivated by Hooni Kim's philosophy in the kitchen. Get ready for the interview's must-see United States edition.
New York, the center of American culture. The Interview has landed in one of the hottest spots in the world for fashion, theater, entertainment, and cuisine. Welcome to The Interview. I'm Susan MacDonald in the city of cities, New York, New York. I think you might recognize where I'm standing. It's Times Square. We're on the last leg of our US tour and ready to meet someone who has blended New York style and Korean cuisine, making it hip and accessible. Come with me to Hell's Kitchen to meet today's guest, Hooni Kim. Hooni Kim is a Korean-American chef who has succeeded in capturing New York. He runs a restaurant, Danji, in Manhattan, New York. Within a year of its opening, Danji became the first Korean cuisine restaurant to receive a star in the world-renowned Michelin Guide. The tables are packed each night with new lovers of Korean food. Hooni Kim seeks authenticity by personally bringing in ingredients from farms, ranches, and Korea. There is no artificial flavoring here. He is always bursting with ideas to create healthy, delicious Korean food. Hooni Kim has introduced New York to high-quality Korean cuisine. Hear how Hooni became one of the world's most famous Korean chefs on this week's The Interview. Let's find out what makes Danji a favorite spot among New York locals. They weren't kidding when they said Danji was always bustling with customers. Everyone looks like they're having a great time. The interior design has a distinctly Korean feel to it.
I like to come often because it's my favorite neighborhood spot. I think in New York, everyone, wherever you live, you find that spot that after a bad day at work or where they kind of know your name or it's just very inviting. That's the kind of place that you always go back to. So for me, it's only 2 blocks away. It's convenient. It's always open. I get out of work really late. It's nice to be able to stop by on my way home.
I took a look into his kitchen.
Order in calamari, spicy wing, 2 bulgogi slider, pork slider, short ribs.
With orders pouring in, all the cooks are moving busily.
I am expediting, which is sort of like conducting. I have my 4 cooks here. I tell them what to fire, when to fire, what to make, the timing, how fast I want it. So part of being a chef isn't actually cooking. It is making sure that you teach your menu to your fellow cooks so that during dinner service I can see all the food coming out. Because if I was cooking, see you have these 4 cooks, I would be only doing 1 or 2 or 3 dishes and you have all these other dishes coming out when I don't even see it. Whereas here, I see everything coming out, I see everything, I taste everything, just making sure that every single dish is the way it's supposed to be.
The customers here can unwind from a long day and relax with the plates of delicious food. Everyone has a favorite dish.
The basam is really good, which is braised pork, which is really excellent. But there's things for vegetarians on the menu. So there's a tofu dish that's really good, and there's the Kobe sliders are really good. And if you want really kicked up spicy food, the Korean fried chicken wings are just amazing, and they're really hot. So
I am a Korean American. who is very tied to Korea. You know, I've lived here for a very long time. I've never really lived in Korea after I was 3 years old. But I have that bond with Korea, and I show it with my food. And I want them to sort of understand that.
Hooni Kim contains his love for Korea in his food. This sincerity is the key factor that captivates all of his diners, whether they be Korean or American visitors. Every day, Hooni's delicious and sincere creations keep people coming back to Danji in New York. Hooni, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for being on the interview.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for coming here all the way from Korea.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, you are the talk of the town here all over New York and Korea. There's been so much press about you, and I'm just curious about who you are and, you know, what's the rage, you know, about here.
I hope I can explain. Okay, what we do is just we serve good Korean food, and you know that's how this place started, and that's what we work on every single day. So I'm just glad that people have taken notice and people appreciate what we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, Hooni, there's so much that I think that the viewers really want to know about you, about how you decided to come up with this really eclectic style Korean food restaurant, as well as just find out about what are some of the secrets to making Danji such a success. So do you give me full permission to kind of go in and ask you lots of questions?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Ready.
Awesome. First of all, what does Danji mean?
Danji is the earthen little pottery where it's used to hold food. I think 꿀단지, honey, is a proper term, but it's also used to hold sometimes soy sauce, doenjang, and stuff like that. And the name came about because, you know, the difference between Danji and 항아리 is the size.
Yes.
Danji is small. And as you can see by this restaurant, we do hold food, serve food, but it tends to be a little bit small. So Danji, the term came about. It also means Danji, like with one exception, or you know, one exception, and that term, we sort of wanted to separate ourselves from other Korean restaurants in the city. We are trying to do something unique and special, and so both of the definitions of the word just fit.
Your location is in none other than Hell's Kitchen, and I'm curious, of all the different places in New York City, why you chose Hell's Kitchen?
It's a neighborhood that really is progressive. It doesn't really have an identity yet. You see very sort of well-to-do people living on the same street as not well-to-do people. It is sort of growing as a neighborhood, and I thought definitely the palates of the people who live here are going to be progressive. So they will be open to new cuisines, new styles, and just a new type of restaurant, which we are.
That's great. One of the really interesting things about Danji is that you are the first Korean restaurant to have a Michelin rating. There have been Korean restaurants in New York City from, you know, many years ago. It's an incredible honor to have a Michelin rating, and I'm just curious, how do you feel about that?
We are very honored. We were surprised when we sort of opened this restaurant. The Michelin Awards or the guide was the furthest thing from our minds. I know some people open restaurants aiming for that star. That's why they put tablecloths. That's why they have very nice flatware, because they want to impress. We just wanted to cook good food. And you know, the Michelin has a reputation of awarding very expensive restaurants with the stars. So we didn't have that ambition. We just wanted to sort of introduce all these authentic Korean flavors to New Yorkers. So, you know, I'm sure a lot of people were surprised, but we were the most surprised.
Wow.
Yeah.
From what I understand, the people who are reviewers or the critics for the Michelin group are incognito. So you don't know who is from the Michelin folks or not, right?
Yes. I don't know if they're the same every year. I don't know. I still don't know who they are. And even when Michelin has a tradition of calling the chefs personally to let them know that they earned a star or been awarded a star. And when I got the call, it was this lady. And I thought, and she congratulated me. She said, "You're the first Korean restaurant ever to, get a star." And I sort of didn't really know who she was. So I asked her, "Oh, by the way, who is this?" And she said, "I'm sorry, I can't really reveal my name."
When a restaurant wins that honor of having that star on the restaurants, most restaurants take photos of it, they put it online, and that's the main thing. But I, coming in, didn't see a star.
We have a star. It's downstairs in the basement. We had it up on the wall for about 3 months. But then I was thinking, the star that they give you is for the year before. You have been given a star for what you've accomplished for the past year. It's nothing about now or the future. So, and they can take that star away anytime. So we celebrated it for 3 months, and then we decided to take it down because we want to win the same star next year.
But they didn't take it away. You just wanted to keep yourselves a little humble and then keep it away from sight.
And there's also this expectation of having a star, and we really don't know what those expectations are. Some people come in and they say, you guys want a Michelin star, but you don't take reservations, there's no white tablecloth, you're so casual. But that's who we are. So we sort of wanted to, distance ourselves from the star because we didn't work for it. It was given to us. So it's more important people come here because of who we are rather than for the Michelin star.
This is the first specialty of Danji's Hooni Kim. Hooni, this looks and smells amazing. What is it?
This is our galbijjim, braised short ribs. What we do is we braise this like we would French style, meaning we season the meat, we sear it, and then we put all the aromatics, the soy sauce, the liquid in, and then we braise it for 2 hours and 45 minutes at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we take it out and we let it steep 24 hours, where all the flavors just keep going in.
Oh, that sounds like a great way to just get the flavors really packed in there.
Definitely. And then, so the second day we actually take it out and then we clean it up. And then the third day we serve it. So it is actually a 3-day process.
A long process for a small dish.
Yes, yes.
May I dig in and taste? I'd love to see if it's as tasty as it smells delicious. Let's see. This is so good. Wow. The flavor is just delicious, just kind of I remember it. And how my grandma used to make it. Oh, I've got to have some of this too. A treat for the taste buds and for the body as well. Hooni's carefully cooked galbijjim is a masterpiece. Hooni, you have a really interesting kind of menu. You have both the traditional and modern. And what I also really love about it is that it's on in every table here. Like I just open up this little drawer here and menu. I always love having the menu close by in case I want to order. Is that kind of the reason why you kept this under the table?
Yes, our tables are small, and we are tapas style, meaning you don't have to order everything at the same time. I think the best way to order at this restaurant is order 2 dishes, order 3 dishes, and then keep going. If you like it, you keep going. And we sort of had that confidence where if you taste our food, you will want more. And I wanted every customer to have the menu with them the whole time because Korean food is interesting. There's a lot of interesting ingredients, and part of us, what we also want to do is educate non-Koreans about Korean food. And if you only get to see the menu for 5 minutes and you have to put it away, you can't learn as much. But if you have the menu with you and you see the food that comes and then read more about it, I think you just get more comfortable with the food.
Definitely. Well, I'm really familiar with Korean food since I was a kid, and so I recognize a lot of the foods from the traditional menu, like the yuke, which is the steak tartare, the taktigim,
and dubu kimchi and all these things. And then when we flip over to the modern section, it's something that's maybe somewhat Korean, but it's your own creation, yes?
Yeah, I would say, you know, Danji is a New York restaurant that serves authentic Korean flavors. Now, traditional side, it is just Korean food dishes with a Korean name. On the modern side, it's more of authentic Korean flavors delivered in a New York style. So if you close your eyes and you just taste the food itself, it is very, very authentic. But it's just packaged a little bit differently where my creativity comes out, more of the New York side comes out.
Yes.
But I don't want to say that it's fusion in any way, because fusion assumes that you break away from the authentic Korean flavors. And I think the most important thing about Korean food is the strong flavors.
Yes.
And that we try to retain.
This looks like a burger. What could be special about this? This looks like a somewhat familiar food to me. This looks like a little bit of a kimchi.
Yes,
Yes.
oi kimchi.
And is this bulgogi?
Yes, it is. It's our bulgogi slider.
Oh, wow.
We just put it in between slider buns. So just, you know, just by sight, it's less exotic. It's more comfortable for non-Koreans to eat. But flavor-wise, it is very authentic Korean flavor.
Oh, wow. I can't wait to taste it. These are so adorably cute. Oh, my goodness. So, let's have a taste here. It's the bulgogi taste that I really love. There's a bit of a spicy kick to it too.
Yes, it is the actual black peppers. Koreans don't use coarse black peppers, but we do just sort of give it a little bit more accent. And the oi kimchi.
Oh, this is so nice. I'm gonna have another taste. Hooni Kim transforms even familiar dishes to fit different cultural preferences.
The flavors of the gochujang, the red pepper paste, of the
yes.
doenjang, the bean paste, and you are really true to kind of the Korean flavor from my experience, but it doesn't necessarily look like Korean food. Like for example, the bulgogi beef sliders. It has the delicious bulgogi inside, but it's got hamburger. Well, it looks like a little mini hamburger.
Yeah, because when we try to introduce, let's say, bulgogi, it sounds sort of exotic, right? On the menu, it sounds exotic. And the Koreans, the way Koreans eat it is they use a lettuce and they do a little sam with the gogi, the pa, and the gochujang, whatever.
Right. It's like a wrap with the lettuce,
exactly.
meat, and the paste and the scallions.
The garlic and everything. And the one way we can sort of make it not exotic is just put a bun covering it instead of the lettuce. And then all New Yorkers or everybody in the US, they recognize that as like a little hamburger and slider. And whatever you put inside it, it's more, they feel a familiarity.
Yes.
So that was one of our ways to introduce exotic Korean flavors to New Yorkers who may not be open to it.
We had a chance to talk to a few of your customers and get some responses from them. And I think that it's really interesting to hear that they are just absolute fans of the restaurant and of you. And I think that it's a real testimonial to your devotion and dedication to helping people know about Korean flavors that they otherwise wouldn't be able to kind of have access to.
That is part of our goal. It's also the way we do it, I think. I think this restaurant is very honest in everything. Our pricing, our ingredients. We list where all of our beef comes from, where all of our pork comes from, where all of our produce comes from. We have to, just because, you know, some restaurants, they don't want you guys to know because they get the cheaper products. We pride in ourselves in using the best ingredients possible to cook Korean food, which really hasn't been done in this country as well, not as often as I'd like.
your eye for getting the best ingredients must be, pretty, pretty stellar because you've worked with the best. And I'm curious, how can you distinguish between what is an excellent kind of ingredient and what's an okay ingredient?
That's just very easy. Produce, it's the freshness, it's the crunch. You can see it. Also, one of the most important things is getting the products directly from the farms. Like we get our pork from Nyman Ranch, which is a ranch famous for pork and lamb. So we trust that farm. We trust that ranch. We use Satter Farms vegetables. We know the farmers, so we know how they grow their vegetables without pesticides, and the animals, the beef and the pork, without hormones. Because
which is so important, because the hormones can really mess people up.
Yes, it's unhealthy. It's not natural. You don't want your children eating it.
Right.
So having this relationship with the purveyors, with the farmers, with the ranchers, it makes your job easier because you don't have to test everything that they deliver.
If you're going to be true to Korean cuisine, you can't miss a good gochujang or doenjang or soy sauce. Do you make your own ingredients? Do you commission people to make them? And what about your kimchi, the flagship Korean food?
Kimchi we make in-house. Every 2 weeks, my mother-in-law comes here and she makes a big batch.
Wow.
As for the other ingredients, we apply the same sort of philosophy where I go to Korea, I know where we make our doenjang. It's about a 30-minute drive from Pohang up the mountain called Jukjang. That's where we get our chamgirum.
Okay.
That is where we get a lot of our ingredients.
I see.
And unlike other restaurants, we try to get all of our ingredients from Korea. And that is the difference between, I think, our flavors than the other restaurant flavors because, Korean food, once you leave Korea, it just tastes different. It loses its authenticity because it's also because I think a lot of the ingredients that are used here in the US are supermarket products because the real artisanal doenjang, they don't sell it in this country. The real, hand squeezed chamgirum, they don't ever make it out here.
Right.
So, it is my job as a chef and an owner of the restaurant to go to Korea and find the best products possible and then bring it. And that's what we do.
That makes for really good food, but you can't help but think about pricing, right? So if you're going to get just regular supermarket type of gochujang, then your price point can be a lot lower, is my guess.
Yes.
But if you're flying things in from Korea, you've got to reflect that in your pricing. And while the food is absolutely delicious, and I think it's worth the prices, I think that Koreans coming in here might have a couple of other thoughts about that because it's not cheap.
Yes, it shouldn't be cheap. Why should Korean food be cheap? Why do some people go to a sushi restaurant and spend $15 for one piece of, toro when you can get a big bowl of doenjang jjigae at our restaurant and pay $12 and say this is expensive and this is cheap? I think people don't respect Korean food enough because traditionally Korean food in the US has always been sort of cheap. I'm trying to change that, because definitely Korean food in Korea is not cheap.
No.
There are a big range, and I think a lot of other ethnic restaurants, sort of Japanese food in New York, they are very expensive and very cheap. Italian, very expensive, very cheap. Korean restaurants, it's all like right here in the middle. And
there's no fine dining
Exactly.
in Korean restaurants here in the States as opposed to Korea. I see.
And that needs to change. For the cuisine to grow, that needs to change. We need to have a wide range because it's like when you go to Korea, you take a diner, a New York diner, and take it to Korea.
Yes.
And that represents American cuisine. That's wrong, right? You have steakhouses, you have expensive restaurants, and then you have cheap restaurants. But that's what I think Korean food in New York is right now. You have these diner-esque restaurants with 20-page menus, all serving the same flavors, same food. So we're doing something a little bit different. It is not cheap, and it shouldn't be, because we use superior products. We have an amazing team who work long hours to prepare a certain dish, where some people can use MSG and prepare it in 2 hours. We take 3 days.
3
like the
days.
galbijjit.
Wow.
It's a 3-day process.
But that's why it's like a melt in your mouth kind of taste, right?
That's why, yes, everything. The flavor from the external part of the rib and the internal is the same. It has to be uniform. You know, the skin of something shouldn't taste different as the interior, just because, you know, it needs time for all the flavors to soak.
Wow.
So that's why it takes 3 days.
This looks like it's deep fried. What could it be?
Hooni,
This is kind of an unfamiliar dish to me.
It shouldn't be, because all it is tofu. It is tofu covered in potato starch, and it's lightly fried. But the vinaigrette is actually a typical Korean traditional tofu sauce, where you have sesame oil, soy sauce, vinegar, and gochugaru.
Very Korean.
Yes, very Korean. And then you have the pa scallions, and you have the Korean red peppers. Everything just very cool.
I love it. I don't know the taste yet, but I can't wait to taste it. May I?
Sure.
All right, let's take a look here. I love the vinaigrette. It's and it's very Korean.
Yes.
I love it. Wow. I feel like I need to just kind of dip it in more of this.
We call it a vinaigrette here, but it's actually just you know, the kanjang that you sort of dip it in when you would order something like this.
Well, the outside is so crispy, it almost tastes a little bit like duck.
Yeah.
The rice cakes.
It's a play on sort of 3 different textures. The tofu inside should be pillowy soft. The covering should be a little bit crispy, and in between, you do get this sort of duck texture, where the moisture from the tofu collide with the crispiness of the starch, and it sort of is stretchy.
Wow. Well, the presentation is beautiful. I love this plate. I mean, the presentation really does make a difference, doesn't it?
Yes, because if it's pretty, you want to like it. So you start with an optimistic view.
Well, I have to say, I'm so optimistic, I am going to have another one.
Hooni Kim's tofu dish turns all of our expectations on their heads.
I'd like to learn a little bit more about you.
Okay.
You, the restaurateur. A lot of people have read about you through different magazine articles and different press, and you've done a number of interviews. But I'd like to kind of go back to the beginning, because after all, you were born in Korea, and now you are doing Korean food. But we want to know about that time in between. So you were born in Korea, and when did your parents decide to come to the States?
Well, I was born in Korea. At 3 years old, I went to England to live in London with my mother. My father had passed away a year before, so my mother and I went to London. She worked for the Korean embassy there. All of her relatives, my uncles, my cousins were there at that time.
That's really unusual for a family at that time, I'm guessing the early 70s.
Early 70s, yeah.
To immigrate, but also not to immigrate to the States, but to immigrate to London. What was that decision?
That I don't know. That was, that was my uncle's. So I don't know why I lived in England, but all my family relatives still are there. They all have British accents. And I had one too until I was 10. And then my mother had this dream of wanting to be a fashion designer.
I see.
So when I was 10, she packed our bags. We went to New York, and we've been here since. And she is a designer. She designs fur coats, and
nice.
she's had her own company for 20 plus years.
Amazing. So when you came here when you were 10 years old, you already spoke English, so it wasn't too much of an adjustment, right? And when you were in junior high and high school, did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you would be opening up a restaurant?
No. I did enjoy food. Living in New York, it's difficult not to enjoy food. I did go to Korea every summer to sort of not forget the language. My mom sent me every summer. And the best part of Korea was the food for me. So, but that was never a career for me. And you know, you grow up wanting to sort of be established, and the easiest way for our generation of immigrants was to be a professional, was to be a doctor, lawyer. And that's sort of the path that I was taking until I got the bug. So I was in.
So let's backtrack just a tiny bit. So you went to college at Berkeley, majoring in biology, is that right? And completely different than, you know, cuisine arts, right? Culinary arts. And then from there you went to med school. You actually got into med school, went to the University of Connecticut, and went there for 3 years, right?
3 years.
So you were absolutely on that traditional Korean American success story path of becoming a doctor. But then something happened.
Going to med school wasn't something that I did because I really wanted to. It was a passion. It was more, I didn't have a passion. So what can I do? Be something respectable. So I was pre-med in college. So the natural course is go to medical school. And that's what I did. But coming close to graduation, coming close to where I was really going to have to work, you know, at being a doctor, I started getting migraines. I started getting doubts. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing.
So were you physically just getting ill from the thought of spending the rest of your life in a job that you weren't absolutely passionate about?
That is what I concluded after, but at that time, no. At that time, it was just, I need a break, it's too stressful. But that stress was because I was doing something that I didn't have a passion for. So basically what happened was I took a year sabbatical.
Okay.
Didn't have the money to do anything. So I went to culinary school just to sort of learn more about food.
You know, I imagine that it must have been quite a difficult thing for your parents to accept you wanting to leave the medical school and go to culinary school. What were their reactions like?
Yeah, my mother did not speak to me for almost a year. She
didn't speak to you?
No.
She cut you off for almost a year?
Yeah.
Whoa.
She blamed my wife for letting me do that. I mean, she knew it wasn't, my mother, I mean, my wife wasn't 100% comfortable with that either. But there were strong objections.
Wow.
But then I knew there would be. You know, how, if my son did that, I would have the same objections.
Because you've spent 3 long years in medical school, racking up loans like most of us do here in the States when we go to school, and then you decide to just switch over to culinary school.
Give up. That's what it seemed like. For me, it was a 1 year sabbatical, and I had all the intentions of going back, but that's not what it looked like to others.
So what was it like for you and your wife? Because if your mother didn't speak to you for a year, and you know, you obviously would love your mother and you want that approval. If she's not speaking to you, how did you try to convince her that that this was the path that you wanted to go on?
It drove me to excel. When I had decided, okay, I'm not going back to medical school, I want to be a chef, I knew I had to be a darn good one. Leaving a white-collar career to cook, which I still consider it's a blue-collar job.
Well, you still have a white collar.
Yeah, and lots of similarities too.
Sorry.
Lots of similarities. But it drives you to become a better chef than a better doctor. So I always knew I had to succeed. Had to, no other option. Because if you don't, then you failed at 2 things. You failed at being a doctor, you failed at being a chef. That's it's tough to recover from that.
And as the only son between your parents, that's a lot of pressure to have.
I think so, looking back, but not at that time. At that time, because I always knew my mother, all she wanted was for me to be happy. And if I knew that being a chef made me happy, then it was just a matter of time when she came around. And I still feel that way. So mothers can be very strong, and my mother definitely was objecting to my decision. But deep inside, I knew all she wanted was for me to be happy, and I knew I had the answer.
What was the turning point for your mother to finally accept that this is your chosen path?
I think getting a job at Danielle, which, at that time, or still is, one of the best restaurants in the city.
Yes.
And seeing me sort of happy, I think. I think as a mother, you can see when your son is sort of happy, even if you're not talking to him.
Yeah.
You can see. And she saw that I was happy. She saw that I was really working hard. And she saw that I was sort of good at what I was doing. So that's when she started coming around. I don't know when she fully came around, but that's when she started talking to me again.
Let's backtrack.
Okay.
How did you get a job at Danielle? That's one of the most coveted types of jobs in the city, no?
I was very fortunate. I had just graduated culinary school. I had 3 months left before I had to go back to school. I decided, well, my last 3 months of freedom, I'm gonna try to work at the best restaurant possible. And I applied for an internship, which means it's a non-paid, I was just working for them for free. And I did until sort of 2 weeks in, Jean-Francois, executive chef at Danielle, offered me a full-time job.
That must have been incredible.
Dream come true, because this is a restaurant where people work 10 years at other restaurants to try to land a job there. That was when I had to make a decision. Even then, I don't think I gave up medicine to become a chef. I took another year sabbatical.
So you hadn't told your med school that you were quitting for good.
No,
you just kept on extending sabbaticals
until they told me don't come back. But then I knew, after working at Danielle, the chefs I respected more than the doctors that I worked for. The talent, the focus, the passion for their career, their profession, the devotion was I thought at a different level than doctors.
But before starting your own restaurant here at Danji, you went to Masa, which is one of the top restaurants in the world, top arguably in New York City. Very expensive.
Yes,
delicious, but very expensive.
Yes.
And why not just go to a Korean restaurant?
Cooking is technique. Cooking is a skill. You need to, before you can cook your own food, you need to understand how food works, how fire works with food. Certain cuisines have different philosophies, different techniques. French definitely is a universal technique. I thought Asian technique, I can learn how to use soy sauce. I can, because a lot of the ingredients for Korean and Japanese are similar. And I just wanted to absorb as much skill as possible.
I see.
And there wasn't, and still isn't, a fine dining Korean kitchen in the US or in New York. There wasn't a restaurant that I could go and learn classic French or classic Korean techniques or classic Asian techniques, except for a place like Masa, where for 2 years I learned how to cook Asian food using dashis, using these vegetables that only grow in Asia and Korea, like minari. We would get that at Masa. So I thought it was an invaluable experience for me.
In between starting Danji and before that you worked at Danielle and Masa, you had a really interesting step, no?
Yes, I loved cooking. I had a lot of friends who enjoyed my cooking. They were able to sort of experience it at Danielle. But at Masa, because it's $450 per person, they could not. But I really wanted
understandably.
I really wanted to show off to my friends what I had learned. So I started cooking for them, where it was just originally friends. And then my friends wanted to invite their friends. So it started becoming a business. So that sort of allowed me to be creative. Because the whole time that I'm working at Danielle and Masa, there is no creative outlet. You are trying to technically perfect and imitate what the chef wants you to do, like his food. So it's more of a technical job.
I see.
Whereas creating your own menu and having your own restaurant is you get to sort of put who you are on that plate. And there is a lot of creative energy in that process. So I wanted to do that. So I thought, it's time for a restaurant.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's how Danji was born.
My philosophy for running Danji is just to be honest. Just to be honest and showing the customers who you are by our food, by our service, by everything that we do, being fair. So I think the easiest way for me to run Danji is to always have this sort of this structure that I can go back to, and that is, I am that structure. It's always easy if I stray away to sort of come back to who I am. And I think of that as being a very honest restaurant, in that I am just showing my customers who I am.
Now, to play the devil's advocate, I have tasted your food, and I believe that it's some of the most delicious flavors I've ever had for Korean flavoring. But you've never actually trained in Korea to make Korean food.
Yeah.
So how is it that you feel that you can actually create authentic tastes if you've never learned how to cook in Korea?
That's a very good question. And because of that, I wasn't 100% confident cooking this food. And that is why that is the only reason, or probably the most important reason why I have the modern and the traditional. I wanted to prove to everybody that I can cook traditional. If I just had the modern, people would be like, is this really authentic? Is this really what Korean food is? But because we have the traditional side, this is what Korean food is. For me, I understand food. You get to cook for a while and you understand the flavors. I had eaten every year in Korea. I've searched out restaurants that I enjoy, and I still have restaurants that I go back to every time I go to Korea. That is real authentic Korean food. I'm trying to sort of bring that here. And because I have a palate, I try to imitate the best 된장찌개 that I've had in Korea, in sort of Jeonju or wherever. I try to mimic that here.
I see.
And that is the traditional side.
Would you classify Danji as a Korean restaurant? Would you classify this as a fusion restaurant? If you had to kind of attach a descriptor to your restaurant, what would it be?
And it's a New York restaurant. It's a typical New York restaurant that serves authentic Korean flavors. Because the flavors are very, very Korean. The visuals might not be. The bulgogi slider, just because it's in a slider doesn't make it fusion. Meaning, if you have a nice omelet, just because you put kimchi on it, it doesn't make it fusion. It is still a French omelet that just has a little speck of something else. And I don't think Korean flavor should be messed with. I think the most important thing about Korean food is the bold flavors, and that should not be messed with. The way you serve Korean food, we do it differently. Korea, they like to bring everything at the same time.
Yes.
That's not how New Yorkers want to eat. So I had to adapt.
I see.
We go course by course, so you can sort of experience each individual flavor and have its own, for it to have its own time before the next course comes.
My personal strengths, I think I know my weaknesses. I know what I can do, I know what I cannot do. And a lot of things that I cannot do, I try not to do. I'm not a type of personality that can sell myself or sell the restaurant. So I don't do a lot of PR. I feel very uncomfortable talking about how good my restaurant can be. We just show you what our food is. So we don't do that. And I think that has been my biggest advantage, of not trying to be somebody that I am not, just to show who we actually really are.
Of a lot of your customers who are big fans, there has been one very prominent person to come to dine here. Korean President Lee's wife, the
Yes.
First Lady,
Yes.
has come here. I'm curious, how did she find out about Danji, and what was she served, and Tell me about that story.
Yeah, I don't know how she found out about Danji either, because it was before the Michelin star. We weren't very famous. But, you know, the Blue House security came one day and asked if we would host a dinner for her. And how could we say no?
Wow, what an incredible honor.
Yeah. So, I mean, we cooked food from our menu, and we gave her about 5 dishes. And she had invited a lot of other people in the food industry, a lot of owners of other restaurants, Korean restaurants, and we just had a big feast for lunch.
Wow. So what did you serve?
We served her 보쌈, 은대구 조림, 갈비찜, 호박죽, and a 된장찌개.
Wow. Do you know what was one of her favorites?
I think the 보쌈. 보쌈 was her favorite. You know, with the 보쌈, it's sort of traditional, but we sort of tweak it a little bit because Americans don't like to eat unflavored meat, like unmarinated. You know, they need salt, they need something. So that's what we do. We braise our pork where there's a lot of flavor, and instead of using 백김치, we use just boiled cabbage, and we still have the mumalyengi. So it's a little twist on the 보쌈, but you know, we try to make things better than the original here. Everything, yeah. So if I am talking to Hooni 20 years ago, what I would tell Hooni is find your passion early, and don't be afraid of what that passion will lead to, but you know, find it now, because don't be afraid, just find your passion. And I would say that to everybody and anybody.
What's one of the most difficult things about running a Korean restaurant?
The ingredients.
What do you mean?
If I had opened a French restaurant, everybody would deliver to my doorsteps. Very authentic. The truffles would come from France or Italy. You know, foie gras would come, you know, great foie gras from France or even the Hudson Valley. All the ingredients they would deliver. All I would have to do is just make a phone call. With Korean ingredients, I need to go to Korea and find it. And that is the hardest thing, because you want to use great ingredients to cook Korean food. You don't want to use supermarket products. You can't find it here. You have to go to Korea. So that is still the most difficult thing, trying to find really good ingredients.
What do you think are some of the most difficult times in choosing this path as a chef?
Having to work 14 hours, 6 days a week. Most restaurants open 7 days a week in New York, but I had to choose to close on Sundays, so that's the one day that I can spend time with the family. I go home at 1, 2 in the morning. Everybody's sleeping. So I don't have a regular sort of lifestyle.
I mean, do you think you can keep this up for your entire life? Do you think there'll ever come a point where you say, you know what, I've done what I wanted to do, but now it's time for me?
I don't know. I mean, this is still something that I want to do. Restaurants have to be open late. People eat dinner late. So it is, you know, it's a choice that I make. I'm comfortable. I hope my family is understanding, and they are. So, and it's a struggle every day. You know, I have a picture of my son, my family downstairs, and it's something that I look at every day. But knowing that they are proud of me, and being, them being supportive of me, just keeps me going.
Hooni, thank you so much for your time today. You've been incredible to talk to, and I think that a lot of viewers are going to look at Korean food in a different way because you make it so approachable and easy to kind of try for those who may not have been used to Korean food at all.
I definitely hope so, and I think we do that, seeing our customers. So that was our goal, and that continues to be our goal. But thank you for coming here.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you again.